And we're back again with a Pauper deck tech, as we love this format, even though we still won't be able to play this in a local scene. But anyway, our deck feature for this video is the Slivers by Nakashima Yuta. This is from a recent Japanese tournament. I think the date was basically last December 25, but nevertheless, it's still one of the highest finish that of the deck of the tribal Slivers deck. And what this kind of archetype implies is that it would still be one of the, I can say, as one of the probably the best aggro deck in the current Pauper Legacy Pauper format. And we explore this one. This is just basically green and white. What this does is just going with the Slivers, pumping up with several of these cards, and just basically Cauldron Warcry for the win for the additional pump. But anyway, let's just do a quick card by card checking on this build. We have 32 creatures, for instance 18 lands and 6 sorceries. Of course, for a gas of Little Stampede and Binding Way, especially probably the most efficient green sorcery card value for creature decks. And we have also a 15 sideboard to be discussed after this. And so the choices for the 1-drops, we have Plated Sliver as the 4 obs. As you can see, we have basically several 4 of this deck and only 2 mass bundle to fill up the role for the 2-drop. Plated Sliver is again having this ability that all slivers gets +0/+1, so any ping effect would be protected by this one, and multiple copies would also having them more or bigger toughness in the end. And also we have also 4 copies of Sidewonder Sliver. It gets you to that of the ability of flanking. So if you remember, flanking is this ability that whenever a sliver becomes block, this one, a creature without flanking blocks a sliver, the blocking creature gets -1/-1. So in a way, this would be efficient for early attacks and making sure that your sliver would be ahead of the combat, let's say combat damage against a creature of that of your opponent. And also we have 4 copies of Virulent Sliver, or slivers have poisonous 1. In case that you will need to go with the poison route of winning, then you have Virulent Sliver as your guide and maybe your way to win out of this. So this would be very efficient against decks that has life gain effects, probably more of the mono white control martyr decks. These are usually matchups that very hard to deal with, especially if you're aggro. So Virulent Sliver is probably your best way to win by having them poison up to 10 and never disregard the life gain that they gain for that game. And so we have the 2-drops. The first of is Gemhide Sliver, having also that all slivers you control have this mana to produce 1 mana of any colors. And in a way, you would need to ramp up for any of the slivers added. You can use Gemhide to do so. And the other 2-drop that is not basically a sliver because it is a shapeshifter is Mass Vandal. So we have 2 copies of that in the deck, and we also have 2 copies in the sideboard. So what this does is that it's only not only a changeling effect, but when it enters the battlefield, you can exile a creature card from your graveyard, and if you do, exile target artifact or enchantment an opponent controls. In any given matchup, especially against Affinity, for example, or in the Auras deck, Mass Vandal would be really efficient in having to deal with their best enchantment or artifact creature per se for the Affinity decks. And more of these pump effects are your Master Sliver. We have 4 copies, the original Tempest build, and then we have from M14, I think this is the version, this is the SLD, but we have the M14 version of Predatory Sliver, functional reprint, but it is still the same effect of +1/+1. And we have the Predator Chaos or Time Shifted version, which is Senior Sliver, also having your slivers get +1/+1. So 4 copies of each of this card will make sure that your creatures would be really efficient on the board, and also having also Wing Sliver would make sure that you can get past through trap blockers or even with the huge blockers of your opponent. So that build comprises the 32 creatures. Again, the pump +1 effect for your creatures you control goes with the Childoran Warcry. So this card is just like a Kindle effect. It gets +1/+1 until the turn, where X is 1 plus the number of cards named Childoran Warcry in all graveyards. So consecutive casting of this card will make sure that you can get additional +X or additional pump to your creatures you control. So with that instant, again, we have sorceries here that can get you refilled your hand by choosing creatures and revealing the top 4 cards of the library and putting those to your hand, all of the chosen type. And the same with Lead the Stampede. You can also look at the top 5 cards and reveal any number of creature cards and put it in your hand. So with the setup, the lands, you can basically see here that it's just all basic lands. 6 plains. We have a lone island for the Wingsliver splash, and 7 forests to fill up the build. And of course, Ash Barrens, 4 copies to also make sure you can basic land cycling for any needed land from your deck. So curving out very well, it's very much easy. You can see that the value is 1.76. It makes sure that any curve can go with the 1-drop and the 2-drop, and at the same time you can still cast Gemhide Sliver to ramp up to any of your slivers added, or cast a Stampede to refill your hand. Now for a quick check on the sideboard, we have 2 copies of Turbid Script. So again, because of the popularity of the Dimir control or the Dimir terror decks that relies on graveyard effects or number of sorceries in instance in their graveyards, you need to have Torment Script against them to exile their whole graveyard to make sure that they wouldn't have any discount effect to cast their terror or their Gourmet Anglers to delve into their cards in their graveyard. In additional, we have 2 copies of Intellect Sliver. This is also going to go with a more creature drop for the deck, in case that let's say you have some matchups with the control wherein they have several wipe or spot removals to deal with the creatures, to make sure that you still have a continuous number of creatures casted, so that all of your board is still replenished or reassembled your army, for example. And then we have 3 copies of Apostle's Blessing. This is just to protect your best creature, at the same time paying only 2 life instead of just casting this white. But given that you're still green white, you can still hard cast this if in a situation that you have extra mana to do so. Target artifact or creature you control gains protection from the artifacts or the color of your choice until the end of turn. So any spot removals would be really be countered by this card for paying only 2 or paying 2 life and 1 colorless mana or 1 mana of any color. And again, additional Mass Vandal for the affinity and the auras or enchantment decks match up, and copies of Weather the Storm. So we have 2 copies of this. This would also gain you 3 life with the storm, but this would be, I think, for the burn or any decks that has direct damage effects. You can use this one to gain life and to make sure that your life total would still be way above the damage range, so that you would still be able to assemble your board and attack and counter attack for your matchup. And then I think this is they still have 2. We have Dust to Dust again for the affinity by removing 2 artifacts from the game, so we have 2 copies of that. And Prismatic Strands that can also prevent damage from sources with the color of your choice. For example, we have effects such as Pyroclasm, for example, wherein you can deal 2 damage to a creature. You can use Prismatic Strands to prevent that damage from the color of your choice. For example, you would choose red for that, and then Pyroclasm would not deal any damage that turn. And also, the good thing is that it can be flashback by just tapping an untapped white creature you control. So that we can make this sideboard very efficient, and also just since this is more of a creature kind of build, boarding in some of this would not be really that hard. Like for example, just cut off some Winding Way or Lead the Stampede in case that you would need some spot removals or Mass Vandals added or Metallic Sliver, and then Cauldron Kai would also become boarded out in mid-range and control matchups, and you can board in Torment Script or Apostle's Blessing, for example, and how you would just adjust your build depending on that kind of matchup. But I think you also get an idea of how this deck would work in the sideboard that the game's setting. And again, the mana curve is 1.76. We have just 1 drop and 2 drops. A lot of your mana value composting in the list. Color distribution is just mainly green and white, but we still have a little of blue here with only 2. That's the wing sliver, but the producers here would still go with the green and white and just a splash with Ash Barrens as your basic land cycling to fix your colors of your lands. And we have no tokens or extras to do so, and I think that's pretty much it for this Slivers deck. This is from the tournament in Japan by Nakashima Yuta. I think he's done a first place finish from the tournament last December 25, and I think it would still be able to become a viable deck archetype in the aggro category for the Pauper format. And again, that's just pretty much it for this Pauper deck discussion. If you have any questions or comments, just comment down below in this video so we can have a good discussion or panel on how this deck would function, or what are your insights and opinions as to how this deck would roll out in the Pauper Legacy format. Again, guys, thank you for checking on this the Pauper deck tech video for today. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and see you on the next one.